how to use data to improve customer experience. That's the topic of the hour. Hello, good day, greetings, ciao, namaste, and salams to peeps from all around the world. Welcome to the show. Now, today's guest believes that there is an art to using data to help understand the world, and it's the art of interpretation, translation, and storytelling that delivers the often hard-hitting answers required in order to take some sort of action. He's the founder of Cynozure, a top 100 influential leaders recognized by Data IQ, and he's the host of Hub and Spoken podcasts. So will you please put your virtual hands together to welcome my fantabulous guest, 𝒉𝒆𝒍𝒑. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Amber. How are you? Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks. Pretty good. Just plugging away at home.
Plugging away at home, yes. Now, before we get into the chips and gravy of this conversation, we're going to start off the show with a quick fire round. Now, remember, these are just fun questions, not to be taken seriously. So are you ready, Jason?
Yep, I'm ready for this.
All right, let's go. Number one, which store would you max out your credit card if you absolutely had to?
Probably, I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy, so probably the Apple Store.
Yeah, me too. Okay, if you were, this is probably, more for the kids. If you were a potato, what way would you like to be cooked?
I'd probably be mashed.
You heard me mashed. You know, my 6-year-old asked me to add that question, so okay. And her answer was mash as well.
Well, you can tell her I'm mashed potato. There we go.
All right. If you could take 3 things to a desert island, what would they be?
Probably my wife, my kids, which arguably that's 3 already because I've got 2 kids, but I'll cheat and my kids could be 1. I'll probably also take my Kindle.
Kindle, okay. I'm surprised you didn't say an Apple device.
Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe I got bored of it because I spent all the money in there. I don't know.
All right. Which of Snow White's 7 dwarfs describe you best? Bashful, dark, dopey, grumpy, happy, sleepy, or sneezy?
Happy.
Happy.
So, yeah. I'm glad you gave me them, though. I wouldn't have known the 7 dwarfs. So.
I'm sure your wife knows.
Bet she does. Bet she does.
If you could have any superhuman power, what would it be?
I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to have 2. 1 for everyone else. I'd probably be healing, and then 1 for me, strength. Because why not?
Oh, of course. All right, Jason, that's it. We did it. And
amazing.
That deserves a wiggle and a dance. And since you have 2 young kids, I think you may be familiar with this song.
We did it! We did it! We did it! Yay! Woo! Hooray! We did it!
We did it, Jason. That was, by the way,
no idea what that is.
That was from Dora the Explorer. Again, a kid's cartoon.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Jason.
Very good.
Let's get into the chips and gravy of this conversation. Could you imagine that if I'm holding a pair of gloves in my hand and if I was to virtually hand them over to you through this screen, could you smash for me, and not my face, please, but some kind of data myth, a bogus strategy, or a misconception, and set the record straight once and for all?
Biggest data myth, probably that data strategy is the biggest myth is that data strategy is about data. So, and particularly through the lens of customer experience, but where you're applying data anywhere, actually what data is about is solving business challenges, solving business problems, going after some new big opportunities that an organization has. That's what it's about. Data is the tool that helps you do it. But yeah, the biggest myth is that you focus all on the data.
Right. Okay. We are obviously going to deep dive more into what do you mean by that. But a quick side note here, we are streaming to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube simultaneously. If for some reason your LinkedIn stream plays up, which it can often do, you can continue over on a YouTube channel, which I'll quickly just display over here, bit.ly/spreading ideas with Amber Khan. And we've already got a Mr. Hi, Kaleem. Kaleem is awesome. He's a super marketer. Thanks for joining us, Kaleem. All right, now let's get back into this Fab Chat, Jason. Before we go any further, could you share with the viewers and listeners, why do you do what you do?
It's a good question. I suppose there's two parts to that. I run an organization. I run Cynozure. I founded that nearly 5 years ago, and what a rush it is to run and launch and scale a business, a bootstrap business, so no investment, single founder. Who would do that? I don't know, but I have, and I do that because it's so much fun. It energizes me. It keeps me motivated, happy, and helps to sort of do some better things in the world than I could do previously as an sort of employed in organizations. But I guess in terms of what we do then as a business, we do that. We help organizations to get better at using their data. I'll summarize it as that for now. And we do that because there's sort of two tracks that data can take in the world. There's this dystopian, negative track, which we're seeing a little bit of actually in geopolitical circles and the wider world with elections and weaponizing Facebook and all this sort of stuff. And there's a really positive side, which is using data for great things to improve the world, to create a positive future, a utopian future, I guess. And that's why we do it. We do it to try and go right rather than left as it's going at the moment. So that's why we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. I love it.
Awesome. So I guess that leads me to the next question: that why is it so important now? Like say 2021 and beyond. What's the big fuss about data now?
Well, data's always been there. The importance of data has always been there. The recognition and understanding of it hasn't. And over the last maybe 5 years, that has started to improve. It's started to get better. People understand it. Some of the buzzwords in the industry have helped with that, like big data and artificial intelligence, sort of help raise up the psyche. I think 2021 going forward, 2020 has had a big part to play in the acceleration that we're going to see in people and organizations getting their head around what it is that they need to do with data. 2020 accelerated digital and moved it sort of 10 years forward. The same has happened, and it's complementary with that. The same's happened in data. People have woken up to the fact that they need their hands at the wheels of their businesses. They need to understand what's going on a bit more. They need to be able to adjust and pivot their organization. They need to be able to react quickly to outside events. They need to understand what their customers are doing, what's happening in the supply chain, what's happening with their products, their services. And people get that they need to have a better picture of that. If they have a better picture of that, they can make much better decisions about what they do going forward. So if people haven't got that sorted yet, then now's the time to get it sorted. If not to trade themselves out of the current sort of potentially negative pandemic or situation the pandemic has created, be prepared for some kind of side swipe that comes down the line next time. But also be really positive and proactive in helping the company grow, which is what data can do.
And could small businesses utilize it to the same extent as maybe the enterprise level companies do? Is it just as
No, in some respects, smaller organizations that are trying to grow, in some respects, they're in a really strong position to set themselves up at the start as being an organization that is data and digital first. Some of bigger companies are kind of trying to retrofit themselves, trying to become data guided with the way they operate, become digital with the way they operate. But smaller organizations can get in front of this. And what data allows smaller companies to do is focus really hard on the right things to do. And as a small company with limited funds, trying to grow, you need data to understand, should we go after something? Yes, use your intuition, but you need to really understand whether something's working or not. You need to test whether something's working and then push harder. And you can't do that without data. So absolutely vital for all sizes and types of organizations as well, not just commercial, but public sector, third sector, and that sort of thing. So super important, very paramount.
So I guess, what are some outdated ideas or methods you have come across as they relate to customer experience?
Well, there's certainly not blending digital and physical customer experience well enough. And interestingly, when you think outdated, you might think, you know, a long time ago, but actually, you know, this is quite a new paradigm. It's a number of years still, but you know, this idea that people aren't interacting with an organization or a service or a product in a way, you know, in the same way anymore. Some services are pure digital, some services are a mix of physical and digital, some start in digital and end up physical. Like if you order something through Amazon, you know, something gets delivered and you have a product at the end of it. Some stuff stays digital, like Spotify, but then they wrap their services around with, you know, in pre-pandemic and I suppose after as well, with events and immersive experiences. So I think one of the biggest things and changes here is that this kind of like this need to blend digital, physical, and use data to help understand how people interact in different ways across those different set of channels.
All right. So I guess in your opinion, where should brands begin when creating a strategy to improve customer experience?
Well, the need to improve customer experience is all about driving the, I suppose, acquisition, then the retention, and then the delight and the delighting of the customer. So that experience needs to be good. So understanding what kind of experience you're trying to create, understanding the type of customer that you have and or the type of customer that you would like, and making sure that the experience reflects that customer. So understanding your customer, or know your customer, some industries call it. Knowing your customer is an absolutely first requirement to creating a really decent experience. And then you can align your experience to the kind of audience that you have and the way they interact you. And that's both from a qualitative point of view, you know, talking, interacting, asking customers, but also a quantitative perspective in terms of watching what they do and watching how they interact and pivoting and adjusting the customer experience. What's really relevant now is making it really personalized and targeted in the way that people interact with you, and it's not just kind of one size fits all, regardless of your, you know, size, shape, background, previous purchase history, whatever, you know, data points you use. So yeah, that's where I'd start. Understand your customer.
Awesome. I know Kaleem here. He's really passionate about talking about customer acquisition and retention. So I'm sure he's going to enjoy this conversation. What types of data do you believe brands put too much emphasis on when it comes to customer experience, and what data should they really be watching in order to gain insight on customer experience?
Yeah, a lot of some of it. Sorry, go on, Amber, say again.
I know you shared some of it, like you have to know your customer, but you know, beyond that.
Yeah, I think over the last sort of 5-10 years, a lot of the effort and investment has been on sort of digital marketing, and you use sort of digital marketing as a way to attract customers and get them to land on your site and then interact with you. And a lot of the time that's using what the industry calls third-party data, and that's sort of other people's data to help understand who this person might be that's sort of browsing or that's sort of searching and clicking on adverts and that sort of thing, and get people to come to your site, or using, you know, the data that Facebook has to help target advertising. I actually think the biggest trick that often a lot of brands miss is that their own data that they have about the experience that their customers have interacting with them directly is at least as important, if not more important. And the combination of those things is really relevant. So you know, that's things like, you know, the kind of customers that land on the site, where they came from, what the journey they take through the website, when they get there, where they drop off on certain pages, where they drop off through the checkout process. If you're, you know, if it's a selling site, what pages people look at, how long they hang around for. All of that information is your own data about your customer, what they bought previously. You know, if you're a retailer, what they returned, what sizes do they return? Do they order multiple times and return a lot? You know, all this information is building a rich picture about an individual, and using that information to help adjust the experience that they have interacting with you is really important. Not just the sort of third-party data that talks more generally about the market at large. And bringing those two things together is then really powerful, because you continually be able to get the full sort of rich picture. And then those brands that are both on and offline, using the information that you have about online experience and information you've collected online to drive the offline experience is going to be important as well. And actually, Amazon are launching another new store. It's not just sort of walk out; it scans your products as you put them in the basket. But on their label, and they've done this in the bookstores as well, is it tells you what the online reviews have been, live real time on the ticket next to the product. So they're sort of blending that experience using data that they already have, they're already collecting in interesting ways.
Yeah. I'd love to know, actually, I don't know if you've worked with anybody in the restaurant industry, because they are pretty hard hit there because of COVID. And now as they're going online, how could they take that experience? Because their customer experience has always been, well, majority of the times, it's been offline. And now they've got to figure out to take it online and blend it all in.
Well, this is the amazing thing about at the moment. You know, there's industries that have not been used to being digital. Restaurants, as you say, is one, and obviously that's a blending of experience of digital and physical. But you know, they essentially have more data at their hands, or sort of more data points. They may have less data because a lot of them are finding less customers. But what they're getting is a bit of a better picture. And they've had this before, but it's quite fragmented through agencies that do online booking, restaurant bookings for you, and those kind of things. But you know, menus moving online, ordering moving online, delivery being tracked online means that there's a real sort of rich source of data that organizations like restaurants can finally have about their customers. They've been trying for a long time, restaurants, you know, loyalty programs and repeat purchase prizes and that sort of stuff is a good way of getting to know your customer a bit more, helping you to manage the supply chain of the products that you need, forecast how many steaks you're going to need for an evening, or the sea bass. That the data that you've got about your throughput of your customers, the covers that you have, the prices that you charge, the time of day people order, all that stuff can really help. And there's loads of industries. My wife's a teacher, and seeing the move from she's a primary school teacher, and she just basically moved online, become a remote learning specialist, and is having to do everything online. And what that does is they can see how long people spend on activities. The management team at her school can see how watch the lessons more regularly, can give more productive and proactive feedback. All of a sudden, it's opened up this world that an industry that really hasn't been used to. And actually, what that helps bring it to customer experience should help improve the customer promise and customer experience, which is essentially the teachers, the students, and the parents. The experience they have with how they interact with the school.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think education, just like the restaurant industry, has been a long time coming, that they've had, I guess, they had the means to, and they also knew how could they better use data, but it was never utilized before. And now everybody's forced to go online and utilize that.
Well, the downside actually is I was going to talk about the exams, so I'm slightly off topic, I suppose, now, but they aren't doing, most year groups aren't doing the exams they're going to do, so they'll be missing a whole bunch of data, which will be people's exam results. But what they're having to do is rely on teacher assessment to provide the results for kids, which should, in theory, be using a whole bunch of data about progress and attainment and achievement and how well people did. And I'm really hoping that the sector wraps their arms around that and does a good job, because we saw what happened at the A-levels and college results last year, where the algorithm made a dumb call basically, and we forgot to put the guardrails in, by the looks of it, which is where data can go a bit funny.
Yeah, my son, actually, he was supposed to sit A-levels last year, so he was the first one to basically face this. Well, no exams, so they were kind of happy about that, no exams. But of course, it was all unpredictable, right? What's going to happen to our grades? And there was a whole long process for majority of the kids I saw. When the results came out, then there was half of them were not happy. Then there's a whole appeal process, and the school didn't know. Like they themselves didn't know what the guidelines were, because it was all very last minute. So bit haphazard, but I'm hoping this year we'll do a better job.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
All right. What kind of barriers should brands expect to face in making a meaningful improvement in its customer experience?
I guess there's much opportunity as something like technology gives, and I suppose the ease at which technology can be procured and implemented, actually, it becomes with a whole bunch of complexity if it's not sort of considered right. So I think technology, whilst becomes a big opportunity, also means that there's a different type of experience, different type of capability internally in an organization that's needed in order to improve sort of customer experience. I think, again, in the moment we're in right now, we're not in a predictable period, and the last year, from maybe February, March, the behavior of customers, the behavior of consumers, the behaviors of citizens is like no other. So there's no real history to compare to. So when we're trying to design what customer experience should look like, can you base it on what we've just had in the last year, or do you base it on normal the year before, or is there something new that's coming that's some kind of combination of where we are now? So I think there's like a bit of a challenge to think about what should the experience be, how will customers interact with us, and basically being ready, right? Being ready to be able to change that experience if it's needed. And if you think about maybe the supermarkets, the grocers, I mean, they've reacted phenomenally in terms of changing their customer experience, moving way more to click and collect, throttling people to their site, switching their app on and off, prioritizing certain customers, different queuing systems outside the door, different distancing at the tills inside the store. All of this stuff is changing the customer experience and changing it so quickly. I've got a very good friend of mine who's very senior at one of the major grocers, and he was saying stuff that would take 4 or 5 months to decide through sort of committees and research. They were deciding in an hour meeting, half an hour, a phone call even, just to make this change, and they'll roll that out across all the stores in the UK the next day. And so the customer experience has to change. The organization has to change. This is the barrier, right? The organization has to be able to adapt and adjust themselves quick enough to be able to adapt and adjust to the way the customer needs to interact. So I think the barrier is sort of the level of agility and adaptability you need in your business to be able to change your customer experience. And as I say, sort of back on sort of the data side, having the customer insight. Lots of people don't have that customer insight that they need, not at a sort of granular level that helps them to better understand what's working and what isn't, and therefore making not making good informed decisions. They're making hopeful, optimistic, maybe good intuition and good judgment, but not sort of baked in some science that really helps them to know they've got it right, or indeed change if it wasn't right.
Another industry I can think of which can do better with data is the airline industry, because I don't know if you've seen, I'm on the email list of few of the airlines, and the emails that I'm currently seeing from them, because as you know, we can't travel at the moment. So sending an email which just says, hey, book your holiday for June this year, when we don't even know what's going to happen. It's a bit silly, rather than if they would have checked my history of where have I traveled, and maybe shown me something accordingly, maybe something new that's happening in the last country I visited or something like that. I don't know. There could have been a better utilization of that data, in my opinion.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with you, Amber. I suppose you have to sympathise with industries that are that badly affected, that they're looking at any way they can to entice people to book, no fees on refunds and all this sort of thing. But at the same time, you're right. We lots of people are like, I can't even think about next weekend, let alone there's so much uncertainty about when the vaccine and all this kind of thing. That yes, it totally makes sense to engage. What this is about is customer experience is about engaging customers, engaging prospects, turning people into fans, turning people into advocates. And if out the other side of this, all you've done is try and flog tickets and get people to book holidays in a time where they're not thinking about holidays, because who can think of that, or the nervousness about losing out and not getting the refund, all this kind of thing. then you might not, right? Yeah, if you've been educated on, you know, Dubai or you know, some places near where you've been before, or new things that are going on there to sort of excite you about what the outcome could be, which is fun with your family and an amazing place. Then that makes you want to go on holiday, and it makes you want to buy flights. So yeah, I agree, and yes, that you can use data, but it takes some imagination in I suppose the marketing and braveness of being brave in your marketing, that you're not just focusing on transactions, you're focusing on sort of that interaction and the experience stuff.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, it's also about, as you mentioned just now, that's not just about the data itself, because these airlines, they've got the resources and they have the data already, but it's now for them, it's more about how do you actually utilize that data to create the best experience. And I see it seems like there's a mismatch there, or something is missing.
You know, at the start when you asked me about the biggest myth, that is exactly what that's about. The biggest myth about data is that it's about data. We've got the data. Everyone's got the data. Small companies, big companies. You've got lots or little, but you've got data that you can use. But it's not about that. It's about understanding what you're trying to achieve, and then understanding outcomes that you're trying to get to, and then understanding how you apply data to those things. You sometimes need to get data to help you inform what you implement, what products you build, or what services you produce. But you've got to remember that the end here is improved, you know, either customer experience or something else, not getting your data ready. And yeah, so that's the important bit, knowing what you're going to do with it.
Yeah, and I mean, what have you seen, say, in mid to large size organization? Do they usually have that that capacity and team members on board, or is it always that they may have a strategy behind, but they're kind of always missing the creative part of how to utilize that data?
Well, obviously it's a big mix. What's out there? There's definitely a bell curve, and at one end there's people that are got this licked. Data in the DNA. They're a data first business. Any decisions that they make use data. They bring their experience. They use that thing. They won't make decisions without at least having explored and looked and understood the insight that they have that helps them make a better decision. The other end of the spectrum, there's less and less of these days, but certainly 10, 20 years ago, there was lots, is that people that aren't using data at all to sort of give their business firepower. There's this big group in the middle that just want to get it right. They want to get data, they want to sort it, they want to plug it into the customer experience. They want to improve their digital assets, they want to improve their products, they want to give their customers a better time, they want it to be better for their employees, all these sorts of things. And there's a real big mix about where people are. They're either very progressed with data from a sort of technology and gathering their data perspective, but they haven't sort of articulated or understood what they want to do with it, as we were saying before. You've got some organizations that have got all the people at sort of hands-on perspective, but don't really have the leadership required to make it happen. And then all sorts of things in between. So it's a bit of a mix, really. What we're seeing a lot of people trying to do, though, is wrap their arms around it, figure out, right, how do we get our ducks lined up? How do we move forward with this where we can get the most value out of it possible?
Yeah. So I guess, what brands have you come across that you believe have done an especially noteworthy job providing first-class customer experience using data, and what can we learn from them? Yeah.
Well, with any example of good customer experience, though, there's always a million reasons why it fell over somewhere. And the data bit here is picking up quickly. But I don't know. I think there's a great business that I know very well called Sport Pursuit. They're an online sports clothing and outdoor retailer. They're a members only proposition. So you sign up to become a member of their club, and then you get access to all of their shop, essentially. But you can only get access to their shop if you're a member. Great business, growing really fast, accelerating quickly. And they have created an experience and an understanding of their customer. They've got understanding of their customer that has allowed them to create an experience and an operation that is really slick that it means that, you know, they're just creating fan after fan after fan, and they know within 3 days of a new customer joining of what their lifetime value will be. And they know that because they've got good understanding of the customers that they have, what looks good, you know, who ends up buying, who ends up hanging around, how long people wait to purchase, how often they purchase. And they use that information to drive a really, really awesome experience. Another organization that's it's recently been called out as the I think they're the second or third business in the UK, in the food business in the UK, to become a unicorn, so worth over $1 billion, is Gusto. And Gusto, again, use data to shape all sorts of things in their business, the way they manage the supply chain, the way they route ingredients around their warehouse, the way they manage the menus. So Gusto, they're a food box company. So you order a box of 4 meals and it comes with all the individual ingredients you need just for those 4 meals. And they use data phenomenally to drive an outcome being a really good customer experience, to get people to want to continue purchasing from them. They're a subscription model. And then there's all the sort of, you know, organizations that people, other organizations that are sort of well known, like Spotify, Uber, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Google, all use data in phenomenal ways to create an experience. And obviously, as I sort of said at the top of this piece, was the sort of negative things, and there's lots of negative things potentially about those brands in the way that you interact and the way that the data is used, but mostly positive, right? People are trying to do positive things with this, and the experience for something like Spotify, you know, you want to use it because it's good. You get access, you get quickly to the kind of music that you like, and that's, you know, they're essentially a data company. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, I have to ask you this because we briefly touched upon it. With all the Facebook data scandal that happened not too long ago, consumers are concerned about privacy. So how can technology maintain data security and improve customer experience at the same time?
Well, it's a balance, really. So I often talk about being a value exchange. So if by providing information to an organization and you trust them to do good things with it, you get a good enough value back, so then it's worthwhile, and it's sort of easy to maintain that balance. The experience is good because I get what I want. The privacy is great because I'm okay with the level of privacy that I'm giving away. So it depends on the value exchange, and when that value exchange tips, that's when it becomes an issue. So if you know, for example, you know, Facebook, when it was mostly about connecting with people, so this is certainly my view, when it was about making connections, it was about, you know, catching up with old friends, it's about keeping in touch with people that don't live down the road, don't speak too much anymore. Brilliant. Value exchange is high. I was happy to post my stuff. I was happy to share. I understood what I was getting myself into because I was getting enough back. As soon as it became, for me, as soon as it became more about the advertising revenue, as soon as it became more about, you know, what can people target with me, you know, you feel like you're the product, or I feel like I'm the product now. I don't find that value exchange is there anymore, so I'm not comfortable with sharing that information, and I don't share that information with them anymore, and I'm uncomfortable. You know, I'm slowly trying to convince everyone to move over to Signal because I don't want to use WhatsApp anymore, because of that information. It will now be shared with Facebook, and it hasn't been up to this point. So I think that balance is maintained firstly when there's a value exchange and there's trust between the customer of the product or service and the provider of the product or service. And as soon as that's out of whack, it's impossible. And you know, organizations spend a lot of time thinking about this, and you know, most 99% of organizations that we know and love are respectful of privacy. They're respectful of the regulations like GDPR, and when wanting to do good things there that help both meet the regulation but also the customer experience and customers' privacy. So that's a good start. It can be quite hard to maintain that balance, and you know, if you think about things like you know, opt-in to marketing and the level of information you have to give, people are thinking hard about what's the minimum I'm going to ask for so that people want to sign up, and how can I demonstrate the value of giving us the information so that they want to interact and engage with us. So that's how I think about that one.
So easy or difficult it is if you lose that, if the customers lose confidence in you, be it because of data breach or something. What do you think? How easy or difficult it is to regain that confidence?
Yeah, well, you raise a good point, and there's some big data breaches that have gone around. So data breaches happen. So security and privacy is wrapped up in the data world in kind of data management and governance, data governance, and they're kind of like, if you can get that stuff right. Most people don't want to talk about that stuff actually, and it's not very exciting. But where it becomes interesting and important is when you realize how big a problem you can have if you don't get that stuff right. And data breaches is one of those huge examples where a lack of governance and management and security around your data can actually have huge brand damage to your organization, which leads to people voting with their feet and potentially not wanting to trade with you anymore. Or impact your share price, or impact the CEO's job. There's so much impact that brand damage can have, and that's really what this is about. It's like, how do you protect your brand, and how do you manage the risk of your brand being damaged, or sending someone a marketing email with your wife's name rather than your own name, or getting a mail shot with the previous people that used to live here. It's kind of like a bit annoying, and you go, well, that's a bit rubbish. But it's not. If you do that at scale, of course, it's a huge problem. But compare that to major breaches and big fines that make it into the front page of all the major newspapers. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So it's important people think about it. I mean, how do you recover from that kind of brand damage? I'm not brand damage reputation recovery expert, but there is potentially crisis management, right? And you need to put some crisis management steps in place to unpick it. And some crisis management steps are to try and manage it in the first place and protect yourselves from those things happening in your first place. So of course, the biggest way of recovering is for it to not happen in the first place. But it depends how strong the brand is, right? Depends how strong the brand is. So some can get away with it a few times before people go back. like Facebook, right? Facebook for some people, it's the last place on earth they'd want to hang out, and they would never go near it. Trying to bring it down, trying to break it up. For some people, it's like, whatever, I get fun, right? I get what I want out of it, and they can do what they want. I'm meeting up with my mates, I'm going to events, I'm sharing pictures. It works. So it depends where you are on that scale of caring about privacy, and it's it requires education across the board.
Yeah. So I guess I have to ask you this, as I'm a small business owner, that this is a question for small business owners, that as a small business owner, could you share like the top 3 data analytics or stats that we need to look at to improve our customer experience from a small business point of view? Because obviously our data is limited. Yeah.
Well, I think the most, it's wide, isn't it? Because it depends on the kind of business. But I think engagement, some kind of metrics around engagement are important, because engagement and that will be different for every business. So for you, Amber, it might be engagement on your LinkedIn posts, and that's enough. It could be engagement with your content as a whole. It could be engagement on your website if that was your main sort of lead funnel to people buying from you. So I think engagement, whatever metric that is for that organization, I think is probably one of the most important for customer experience, because it demonstrates that someone's got an interest in what you're doing. And they might not want to purchase straight away, but they've certainly got an interest in you as an organization, and they clearly enjoy the experience if they keep coming back. So that level of engagement, I think, is an important one. Clearly, the conversion to money, so the money side of customer experience. I think customer experience, again, depends on the business you are, but your customer experience should lead people to wanting to purchase, make a transaction. And it might not be today or tomorrow, it might be next week, next month, next year, but they should lead somewhere. So clearly the financial metrics are going to be important. Yes, revenue, but actually, net profits and cash are clearly the other side. So we've got customer, we've got finance, and then I suppose something around the kind of product that you sell, and understanding the nature of the product. So who's purchasing it, if you sell multiple products or services, how much penetration do you have? Do people buy one thing or all 5 things? Do people buy deep in one category or slim across many? So understanding your products and the metrics associated with how that sort of manifests itself in how you trade and transact. I think those will be the 3 areas.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right. So what tools or innovations are you most excited about for how they can offer brands insight on what their customers like, dislike, or they want?
Well, I think I'm sort of reluctant to say it, but I think artificial intelligence used in the right way and for the right purpose is very exciting. AI is often a badge that's put on things that aren't AI. It's often a thing that is used when it doesn't need to be used. But when it's deployed for the purpose of improving a metric like customer experience at the top level or anything underneath that, I think it's super exciting. And we're really just sort of scratching the surface of it. And we need to be super careful and have the right guardrails in place to make sure it works in the right way. But yeah, so AI sort of without a doubt, I think is something that I'm interested in and excited about. And I think anything that blends the sort of overall experience of digital and marketing, I think is exciting. And there's lots of sort of acquisitions happening in this space and coming together of different technologies convergence that drive that sort of slightly easier to connect the different data sets, connect the different experiences, connect the different channels. So anything in that space is pretty cool as well.
Awesome. Yeah, AI, I mean, I see more and more AI softwares in all different niches, especially in marketing. It seems like every day there's a new AI software trying to help you do something better. But then everything takes time to understand, right? Because when something new comes into the market, it takes time for you to understand how this technology works.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And you don't want to take AI and find a problem to solve. You want to find a problem to solve and see if AI or even just a spreadsheet will do the job. So I would look at it that way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a quick note that this show is sponsored by Repurpose Den, where we help you transform your thought leadership content, be it a podcast, video series, a business blog, or book, into online marketing experiences that grows your business, brand, and impact. Because content marketing costs 62% less than outbound marketing and generates about 3 times as many leads. You'll also find best bits of this show repurposed into short clips on my channel. Let me quickly get the link for you, bit.ly/spreading ideas with Amber Khan. And if you need any help with transforming your brand's thought leadership content, then just drop us an email at help@repurposeden.com. All right, it is now that time of the interview for us, and you may be thinking, what is it, gossip time, or share the fun pickup lines time, or tell an embarrassing joke time? Unfortunately, we are not that type of a show. Well, not yet anyway. But what it is time for is... it's the 48-hour challenge time. Now, Jason, this is where I ask you to share what is that one thing that our viewers and listeners can implement when it comes to either improving customer experience or analyzing data in the next 48 hours that doesn't cost an arm and a leg or requires a large team to execute it?
Cool. Yeah, tricky one. So I think that what the challenge I would set is going to be something around the purpose of doing this stuff. So we've talked quite a lot about using data in customer experience, what customer experience is, how you can improve it. Lots of complexity with technology and why people do it. So I think what's really important and what I see companies getting really good value from is just to write down why they're doing what they're doing with data and what they want to achieve with their customer experience. So some kind of vision statement that articulates why you want to improve the customer experience, how you will improve the customer experience, and to what end. I think a nice, short, sharp, really clear, no jargon statement that sort of brings that together, that you can articulate on the walk to the car or on the end of a quick phone call to someone that doesn't understand data or customer experience. I think that is really that's my challenge. That's the challenge I'll set.
that sounds nice and sweet, and it's doable within the next 4 years.
And people can share it on LinkedIn and tell people about it. And
going to come in. So where can people tag you? If you watch this later on and tag Jason when you do complete your challenge, where can people find you?
I'm normally hanging out on LinkedIn. So if you look up, there we go, Jason B. Foster. I'm at Mr. Jason B. Foster on Twitter. You can find the company, my company on LinkedIn, Cynozure. We've also got a podcast, which I think you mentioned at the start, which is hubandspoken.com. Brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, that's where people can find me.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you will find Jason's podcast, of course, on all podcasting channels like iTunes, Spotify, and everywhere. So just type in Hub and Spoken. You can, obviously, as Jason suggested, connect with him on LinkedIn, Jason B. Foster, or check out his website, cynozure.com. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show today and making this fun.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been great. Loved it.
Awesome. So until next time, I'm hoping that this year we could do probably more lives, more niche on different subjects around this. So hopefully we can do some more later on in the year. But for now, toodaloo for now.
Thanks very much.